book of Exodus, the second chapter. I will not be before you long, I guarantee it. The book of Exodus, the second chapter. Going to read the first to the 10th verse. Now a man from the family of Levi married a Levite woman. The woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was beautiful, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with asphalt and pitch. She placed the child in it and set it among the reeds by the bank of the Nile. Then his sister stood at a distance in order to see what would happen to him. Pharaoh's daughter went down to bathe at the Nile while her servant girls walked alongside the riverbank. Seeing the basket among the reeds, she sent her slave girl to get it. When she opened it, she saw the child, a little boy, crying. She felt sorry for him and said, "This is one of the Hebrew boys." Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Should I go and call a woman from the Hebrews to nurse the boy for you?" "Go," Pharaoh's daughter told her. So the girl went and called the boy's mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse him for me, and I will pay your wages." So the woman took the boy and nursed him. When the child grew older, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses because she said, "I drew him out of the water." And as we continue our For the Culture series on this Valentine's Day weekend, I just want to talk about real love. Real love. If I wanted to get you hype, I would have had real love. I'm searching for a real love. Someone to set my heart free. Real love. I'm searching for. You picked that right up. It's funny, she's doing the Super Bowl halftime show tonight. Can't wait to see her dance. We love you, Mary. But we are talking about a real love. You know, during this series, we have been looking at things that, quite honestly, we have to get back to as people. And we've been arguing that sometimes because our history and our education has been done through the lens of a European perspective, that sometimes we have gotten away from the African principles that are associated with our history and associated with who we are. And the truth of the matter is, we are a people who love. And as a matter of fact, even if you don't want to go down the Black History Month and things like that, at the end of the day, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what you do, everybody is searching for love. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody's looking to get married. I'm not suggesting that everybody's looking to be in a relationship, because at the end of the day, it's not always about that type of love. But I am suggesting that whether it is romantic, whether it is platonic, whether it is familiar, everybody wants to experience real love. All right, let me do it this way. There's some folk who have been scorned by what folk have defined as love. Can I keep it real with you? There's some folk. Is there anybody in here who will agree with me and say that some of my biggest hurt has been from people who claim to love me? Are you with me? Some of my biggest pain, some of my deepest moments have been because of somebody who looked me dead in my eyes and told me they love me. Could be a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, but there's been family members who told me they love me but messed me up. There've been friendships and relationships where we claimed we loved each other, but I got messed up over it. And the truth of the matter is, I want to help us to identify what real love looks like. And the truth of the matter is, while there are many characteristics and many principles, I'm just going to look at 3 today that help me, that if I don't see these 3 things, I can't call it real love. You all know I love the story of Moses. My mother can tell you all my life I have acted out being Moses. I love the story of Moses, and I never really took appreciation of his beginning story. You all know the story. The text says that Pharaoh decrees that every Hebrew boy must die. Moses' natural mother has him and sees the beauty of this boy, and she hides him for 3 months. The text says that after she could no longer hide him, she takes him and puts him in a basket because she does not want him killed. She puts him in a basket and she puts it among the reeds or among the weeds in order for it to go down the Nile. The text says that Moses' natural sister watches the basket from afar. The basket makes its way to the area where the Pharaoh's daughter is bathing. Now, when you read it, it never mentions the daughter's name in the text, but other sources, like the complete works of Josephus, has named her Thermuthis. Others have known her Bettia. No matter what, she is an Egyptian woman, or what we're using her in the text for. The reason why I picked her is because if you noticed, every character that I've preached from this week would have been somebody from the black skin or somebody from a darker skin. This is an Egyptian princess. Who sees this basket and chooses to get her slave to get the basket. When her slave gets the basket, she opens it up, and she immediately notices this is one of the Hebrew boys. This is one of the boys who should be dead. This is one of the boys who my father's decree says should be killed. The text says that the little boy's sister, who was following, says to her, "Do you want me to go get a woman to nurse this child?" You know, it's not a part of the sermon, but that's a shout right there. The mother literally puts this child in the water to save him from death, not knowing if he'll ever see him again. But through the grace and mercy of God, she now has the opportunity to raise the child that she's put free. But not only that, she gets paid for it. The text says that she says, "You go ahead and you raise them, and I'll pay you." She gets paid for raising her own child. The text says that after the child reaches a certain age, they bring him back to the palace, and Pharaoh's daughter adopts him as his own. Pharaoh's daughter adopts him and raises him as his own and names him Moses. Well, I told you I won't be before you long because I already said my 3 points in the story. First thing that comes up for me is this: real love has a heart of compassion. You know, Zandy, one of the things that is challenging me more and more in this narcissistic society and in this me, myself, and I way of thinking and in this self-centered world is how compassion is starting to leave us as people. We are not as compassionate as we once were. You know, there was a time where our grandparents, where our great-grandparents actually cared not just about what was going on in their house, but actually cared about the rest of the houses on the block. My grandmother kind of blew my mind. You could tell I'm not used to this. A couple days ago, someone on the block, their husband passed away. And I was on the phone with my grandma, and I heard her in the car. Now, you know, Connie has not been out in the world since COVID. So I'm like, "Where are you going?" She said, "I'm taking a car down to Miss So-and-so. Her husband passed away." And I started thinking about it. There's folk who live on the block who can't even say their next door neighbor's name. But that was a generation that cared about the block, cared about the community, had a heart of compassion. I submit to you that we are getting away from being compassionate people. Think of how many times we've walked past somebody in need. Think of how many times we ignored somebody that came in here in need. Think of how many times we don't look beyond ourselves. I probably ain't going to make you shout today. I'm probably not going to make you jump off pews today. I'm probably not going to do no jumping or shouting. But at the end of the day, I want to challenge us to get to a space where we are compassionate. To get to a space where we don't just view our plight as the only plight. When is the last time you cared about somebody else's issue? When's the last time you prayed for somebody? Matter of fact, can I make you really shout for a minute? Is there anybody who believes this statement? I believe in the power of prayer. Is there anybody who believes that prayer really does work? Here's the deal. I love how many folk are clapping right now, but if we really believed that prayer worked, we would use it a whole lot more. If we really believe that prayer actually handled things, we wouldn't be afraid to pray for our neighbor in need. That's what the old songwriter was saying when it said, somebody prayed for me, had me on their mind, took the time and prayed for me. I'm so glad they prayed. I'm so glad they prayed, because the truth of the matter is there is power in prayer. But here is what has happened. Far too many of us have made our prayers only focus on us and our wants and us and our desires. I want to help you. If you really want your prayers answered for you, take a moment and pray for somebody else. If you really want to get your prayers answered, take a moment and put somebody else's needs on your prayer life. You have no idea how God will move in other people's lives, and you have no idea how God will see your compassion and move in your life. Love has a heart of compassion. But then not only that, love supports the notion of adoption. It's in the text. Notice that the text says that she sends the boy to be raised by his biological mother, and then his biological mother brings him back. His biological mother brings him to the palace, and she raises him as his own. Now, no matter how you look at it, because think about it, he was a Hebrew boy who now is being raised in a place of privilege. He was a Hebrew boy who had a death sentence pronounced over his life. And thank God, because of God's wisdom and because of God's anointing, he now does not have to fear that death sentence, because he's being raised as an Egyptian. The truth of the matter is, it is because she was not afraid to adopt him that he now has this opportunity. Now, I know what somebody's saying. Somebody in the room just cut me off. They turned me off because they said, I'm not adopting no more children. Somebody cut me off because you think that I'm about to make an argument for you to adopt a child. And it may very well be. Somebody in here may be gifted and may have that blessing and may be called to adoption. But I submit to you, everybody in here is called to adopt something. You're wondering, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? While you may not have a child to adopt, everybody in here, if you are breathing, if you can see me, if you can hear me, if you can communicate, everybody in here has a call on their life to adopt something. I know. Everybody in here has a call on their life to adopt something outside of you, something that is not necessarily for you to benefit from. Everybody in here has a cause that you ought to adopt. Everybody in here has a purpose that you ought to adopt. Matter of fact, everybody in here has somebody that you ought to adopt. What do I mean by that? Somebody that you are pouring into. Somebody that if you've got wisdom, you are a fool if you leave this earth without departing that wisdom into somebody else. Everybody in here has a cause that you are called to. What do I mean by that? You do know that if you are in here, you have a calling on your life. You may not be called to stand behind a pulpit. You may not be called to preach, but everybody in here is called to something specific. Martin Luther King has a quote that I love that says, until a person has found their reason to die, they have yet to have found their reason to live. In other words, if you really want to live the full life that God has for you, you have to step into into purpose. You have to step into what God has for you. And here's the deal. What God has for you may mean that you've got to adopt it as your own, cultivate it and raise it and give it your time, give it your resources so that it can become what God has called you to be. I know what the problem is. Far too many of us have not spent time asking God to show us what it is that I'm supposed to adopt. What is the thing that I'm supposed to carry? What is the thing that's supposed to give me purpose? What is the thing that you have called me to? You are not supposed to just be sitting on the bench. Everybody has a court to play on. Everybody has some time in the game. Everybody has something that you are equipped to do. Can I really push it for you? There is something that only you can do. There is something that you are specifically designed for. Everybody in here has something that God says, you know what? I think Olivia is the person for this one. Taliba is the person for this one. Iron is the person for this one. At the end of the day, everybody in here has something that God has called you to. And the question is, are you going to get to the end of your journey and look back and realize you never adopted the thing God told you to adopt? Can I really push it? The rewards of your life, the rewards at the end of this journey are connected to not how well you did, but how well you did with the thing God called you to do. I'm going to say it again. The rewards of this life are not connected to how well you did, how successful you are, how many degrees you have, how much money you have in your pocket, how many people clap for you, how many people shout for you. The rewards are connected to the thing God called you to. Did you ever get on board with it, and did you give your all to it? Now, can I really help you understand this? At the end of the day, if it's God's will, it's going to happen whether you get on board with it or not, but God would like it to be you. Everybody in here has something bigger than themselves that you ought to adopt. Can I really give you a moment to shout? Because when you look in Ephesians, the adoption language ought to make you shout, because I read a book that says we are adopted into the faith, that we are adopted by God himself. And I'm trying to help you. You do know that you've been adopted by God. You do know that God looked down on you and decided to take you on as his own, and says that because I'm taking you, you have access to me, and through that access to me, you can move mountains. Through that access to me, you can do amazing things. Through that access to me, you can live to your fullest potential. I'm trying to help you. If you ever adopt the thing that God has for you, it's through the access to him that you will be successful at it. Real love is compassionate. Real love supports the notion of adoption. But this is the one I'm probably not going to get you to shout out. Real love is willing to name a thing. I'm going to push it. The easy point to this, Andy, the easy point to this, Liv, if you in a relationship and don't know what to call it, please don't fool that as love. I'm going to say it again. If you in a relationship and the title of it is It's Complicated, if you in a relationship and don't know what to call it, please don't allow that to be considered love. Because real love will name it something. I'm going to say it again. Real love you at least get to be my girlfriend. You can't be my, never mind. You at least get to be my girlfriend. You get to be my fiance. You get to be my wife. It ought to be named something. But you know what? You all aren't necessarily shouting at me because most of y'all are in good relationships where it's already been named. But can I help you with another thing that real love does? Real love names a thing, which means that if you are walking around with an issue, if you are walking around with an unnamed thing, if people are letting you be a fool without calling it what it is, that's not real love. Real love will also name the stuff you're dealing with. Real love will also name the stuff that's wrong with you. Here's why. Because if you're not willing to name the stuff, you'll never get around to working on the stuff. Can I push it? Real love doesn't just allow you to call it, I got issues, I got stuff. Real love says, let's work on the issue, let's work on the stuff, which means we got to call the issue what it is. We got to call the stuff what it is. That's one of the things I love about being married to Rakaya Kwayam Mack. One of the things I love about Rakaya Kwayam Mack is that it does not take long before she's willing to call a thing what the thing is. Now, here's the deal. Once it's called a thing, that's when you can work on it. That's when you can deal with it. Can I really push it? Some of us need to get to the space where we love ourselves enough to call our stuff what it is. You have specific problems. You have specific issues. You have specific things that you don't have the ability to handle, that your strength is too limited to handle. So stop trying to handle it on your own. Stop trying to ignore it. Call it what it is and take it to God. I'm going to say it again. Call it what it is and take it to God. Because here's the deal. God already knows you have it, so you might as well go on and name it. God's already seen it in you, so you might as well go on and name it. And here's the deal. There ain't a thing you could be wrestling with. There ain't a thing you can be dealing with. There ain't a thing you can have that God doesn't know the name of it, that God doesn't know how to deal with it, that God doesn't know how to handle it. At the end of the day, if you ever get to the space where you name it, that's where it can be worked on. That's where it can be handled. Go on and call it what it is. I'm trying not to call out your stuff, but you know what your stuff is, so I need you to name it yourself. You know your issues. Name it yourself. Yep, at the end of the day, there ain't a thing on the list that God doesn't have experience with. There ain't a thing on the list that God can't help. As a matter of fact, that ought to make you shout right now. Think of the worst thing that you don't want to name. I'm going to give you a moment to do it. Think of the worst thing that if I said call it out, that's the one you would not call out. Whatever that one is, God already knows about it. God already sees it. God already knows how to handle it. God's just like, if you're willing to let me do it, I'll move in your life. I'll make ways for you. I'll do it for you. I'll open doors for you. I'll settle it. You just got to call it what it is and give it to me. So all I've tried to argue on this day is that I'm looking for real love. I'm looking for real love. I'm looking for a heart of compassion, and I'm looking for something to adopt, and I'm looking for something to name. I'm looking for real love, because can I really push the issue? When I think about real love, it was the love of God that had all of these in place. It was the love of God that had every one of the three things I named. It was a heart of compassion that looked down and saw a wretched soul like me. It was a heart of compassion that looked down and saw a sinner like me. It was a heart of compassion that didn't allow me to be to my own devices. It was a heart of compassion that said, I'm going to do something more than just be God in heaven. It was a heart of compassion that put on the limitations of flesh. It was the heart of compassion that came down to this earth. It was the adoption of me. God adopted me, and that's why he was willing to die for me. God adopted a sinner like you, and that's why he was willing to go to the cross for you. God adopted you, which is why he was willing to go to the grave for you, and got up early Sunday morning with all power in his hands. And you got a God that consistently names things consistently. As a matter of fact, he took time to name you. He decided to create you. He decided to move mountains for you. He decided to make ways for you. You've got a God that's willing to name issues. You've got a God that says, I'm going to give you the Holy Spirit so that whatever it is you come up with, whatever it is that you are afraid to name, the Holy Spirit is able to deal with it. So I'm done preaching, but is there anybody who can say this? I may not have found real love in people, but I found real love in my God. I found real love in my Savior. As a matter of fact, that's the one love that has never failed me. That's the one love that has never ripped me. That's the one love that has never broken me. That's the love that keeps on keeping me. Well, I'm going to give you an opportunity to give God glory and to give God praise. Is there anybody here that got a real love from God? And is there anybody here that has a real love for God? I dare you right now, give God your best praise. I dare you right now to Worship him. I'm looking for a real love. As we stand to our feet, I don't know who I'm talking to, but all I've tried to argue is that no matter what the love you're trying to experience is, whether it be familial, whether it be platonic, whether it be romantic, no matter what it is, understand at least those foundational truths. It ought to come from a place of compassion. It ought to be willing to adopt something outside of itself. And it ought to be willing to name a thing. And as you put those into play, that ought to help you get to real love. But the truth of the matter is, the best love I could ever experience is the one from the one who gave his life for me. And if I ever get in right relationship with him, if I make him Lord over my life, that's a love that never fails.